Hello, hello. Welcome to English Extras. My name is Jean. If you're here, it's because you don't want to sound like a textbook. You're in the right place. This podcast is to help intermediate and advanced learners find alternatives to textbook English so you can express yourself authentically. Before we begin, if you want the transcript for this episode, you can follow the link in the description. Reading and listening at the same time is a great way to improve your English. And I also include definitions of words and phrases I use in the episode, as well as example sentences at the end of each transcript. Ready? Let's begin. Probably one of the hardest things to say, regardless of the language, is I'm sorry. A lot of emotion tends to be tied up in an apology. An apology meaning to say I'm sorry, to apologize for doing something wrong. Just like in any other language, there are multiple ways to apologize in English. Some more formal and some more casual, depending on what the situation calls for. Today, I'm going to share 3 ways to apologize more formally, 3 ways to apologize more casually, and some things you can say after you apologize. Let's start with 3 ways to apologize more formally. Probably one of the most formal ways of apologizing that I've heard actually used is I apologize. I apologize. You can use this as a complete phrase. For example, I apologize. Please forgive me. Or if you want to be specific, you can say, I apologize for, and continue with what you believe you did wrong. This is a good phrase to use in professional settings. For example, I apologize for not scheduling this meeting sooner. I didn't mean to rush anyone. The second way to apologize a bit more formally is simply to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry typically has more weight, especially depending on tone, compared to the more casual form of sorry without the I'm. It's similar to the difference between love you and I love you. Adding the I'm adds weight. It adds even more weight if you don't use the contraction. I am sorry. When used this way, the emphasis usually falls on am because it adds sincerity. I am sorry. You can say it this way if you are truly trying to convince someone how sorry you are. If you want to add even more weight, you can add so. I am so sorry. We say this when we make a mistake, but we also say this when someone tells us something sad. If someone says, my cat died yesterday, we can say, I am so sorry to hear that. People will often say, I'm sorry, when they hear bad news, even though they themselves did nothing wrong. It's a way to show sympathy for the other person's misfortune. The last example of a formal way to apologize is, I owe you an apology. I owe you an apology. Compared to I apologize and I'm sorry, this way is the weightiest, meaning you did something very wrong and you want to really make it clear that you feel horrible about it. This way is typically used between two people, not one person to a group, but that's not a rule, and there are, of course, exceptions. I owe you an apology is also not the apology itself. It is merely a signal that you want to apologize. And so you should continue on to say, I'm sorry, or I'm so sorry, or I'm truly sorry, etc. Now, let's talk about the more casual ways you can apologize. When I say more casual, I also mean less weight. So these apologies are best used when it's a small mistake or a mistake that didn't really hurt anyone or anything. The first one is one of the most common for my age group, but is used and accepted by all ages. My bad. My bad. Did you accidentally say 3 instead of 4? Oh, I meant 4. My bad. Did you forget to text someone a link to that video you talked about? Oh, I completely forgot. My bad. My bad is a way to acknowledge that you made a mistake, but it wasn't a big one. It isn't even a real apology exactly, just an acknowledgement of a mistake. The second one is what I would call a light apology, and that is sorry about that. Sorry about that. You can use this to both apologize as well as to show sympathy. If you made a small mistake, oh, sorry about that, let me fix it. Or if someone gives you some sad news, oh, I'm so sorry about that. The third one is not exactly an apology either. It's similar to my bad because it signals a mistake was made. That is, whoops or oops. Very often, this exclamation is followed by some sort of apology. Whoops, my bad. Or oops, sorry about that. But it's always used to signal a mistake made. It isn't used to show sympathy. Unless you're being sarcastic, which isn't very nice, let's be honest. If someone tells you their cat died, you don't want to say whoops, because that would be extremely rude and mean. And of course, tone matters. Even the sincerity of I owe you an apology can be canceled out by saying it like, I guess I owe you an apology. And the simplest sorry can have more weight when said with the right tone. Sorry. So at the end of the day, tone says more than the words themselves. Now, let me share some things you can say immediately after you apologize. Most of the following phrases have weight to them, meaning these are things to say in a sincere apology because you made a big mistake. One way is to say, I messed up. This contains the phrasal verb to mess up, which means to make a mistake. So saying I messed up means I made a mistake or I did something wrong. I often hear it paired with I'm sorry. So I usually hear it like this: I'm sorry, I messed up. Another way is to say it won't happen again. It won't happen again. This is a promise that you won't repeat the mistake. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. Another way is to say, how can I make it up to you? How can I make it up to you? There's another phrasal verb here, to make it up to someone. Put another way, what can I do to make you feel better? I owe you an apology. I'm truly sorry. How can I make it up to you? The last two ways are very similar. They both signal intent, meaning what you wanted to do or tried to do. I should have done this, meaning this action would have been better. And I shouldn't have done that, meaning that action was wrong. For example, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have lied to you. I should have told you the truth. And the other is I meant to do this, meaning I intended to do this action. And I didn't mean to do that. Meaning, I didn't intend to do that, or I didn't want to do that. For example, I apologize for being late. I meant to arrive early. I didn't mean to be so late. Now, before we finish, I want to briefly mention 3 ways you can respond when someone apologizes to you. The first is thank you. When someone says, I'm sorry to you, you can acknowledge the apology by saying thank you or thanks. For example, when you share sad news and someone says, I'm sorry about that, or I'm sorry to hear that, you can respond, thank you. The second is it's okay. It's okay. When someone apologizes to you and you want to show that you don't feel bad toward them, you can say, it's okay. Some people believe this isn't a good way to respond because it signals that the bad behavior is acceptable, but it's still an extremely common way to respond to an apology. The third is I accept your apology. I accept your apology. This is the most formal response. When someone says, I'm sorry about that, I messed up, you can say, I accept your apology. It carries a lot of weight and is usually used for serious mistakes. There are, as you can imagine, more ways to apologize, but this episode has gone on long enough. If you want, you can leave a comment and tell me what other ways you know to apologize. And don't forget, you can find the link to the transcript in the description. Thanks for listening. Until next time, bye.